This is the story of a young woman whose life promised to be a shining chapter in Hollywood history, and how one night in August 1969 transformed her name into a symbol of an era's lost innocence. Sharon Tate was an actress, a director's wife, and an expectant mother. But her fate became intertwined with the name of Charles Manson, the man who managed to turn the faith of several young people into an instrument of violence. This screenplay will take you through Sharon's early years, the rise of her career, her close relationship with Roman Polanski, then delve into who Charles Manson was and what the family was, and conclude with a precise chronology of the tragedy and its aftermath. Sharon Marie Tate was born on January 24, 1943, in Dallas, Texas. Her childhood was typically on the move. Her father served in the army, the family moved frequently, and Sharon learned to adapt early on. Already as a teenager, she was noticed for her unusual appearance. Her height, facial features, figure, and photogenicity paved the way for her entry into the modeling world and beauty pageants. As a teenager, she lived in Europe, spending part of her youth in Italy on assignments for her father. It was there that Sharon landed her first bit parts and first encountered the film industry, which later prompted her to move to Los Angeles, where she purposefully pursued an acting career. In the mid-1960s, she began receiving increasingly prominent roles. In 1967, the film Valley of the Dolls was released, capturing her audience's attention. Sharon was valued not only for her looks. Colleagues noted her charm, spontaneity, and professional discipline, which made her well-suited for a wide range of screen roles. Sharon's career developed rapidly, with appearances on television shows, commercial photo shoots, and film projects. Her name appeared on lists of new faces of Hollywood. During this time, she met people who would influence her life personally and creatively. One such person was Polish director Roman Polanski. Their romance developed quickly, shared interests, cinema, and mutual attraction. In 1968, they married. Sharon soon became pregnant. She and Roman were expecting a child, and the couple had many plans for the future. The family settled into a house on Cielo Drive in the Holmes Glen neighborhood, a house with an atmosphere of privacy and tranquility. But in this silence, events accumulated that would ultimately lead to an unimaginable tragedy. In August 1969, Roman was in London on business. Sharon and her friends stayed at the house on Cielo Drive. Stylist Jay Sebring, artist and designer Wojtek Frykowski, heiress and activist Abigail Folger, and a chance visitor, 18-year-old Stephen Perron, who had stopped by late that evening. Sharon, in the final stages of her pregnancy, was expecting her child. Friends spent the evening at home, unaware of trouble. But in the world beyond their comfort zone, ideas and plans were brewing, carried to their death by another man, Charles Manson. Charles Mills Manson was born in 1934 into a dysfunctional family. His mother was young and unplanned. His father disappeared from the family history. From an early age, Charles saw prisons and boarding schools. As a teenager, he committed petty thefts, carjackings, and was arrested. He grew up surrounded by delinquency and prison culture, and during his years behind bars, he developed a knack for reading and manipulating people. After being released from yet another prison term in the late 1960s, Manson found himself in the counterculture, psychedelics, free love, and the search for spirituality. He managed to translate his criminal skills into the role of a charismatic leader. Manson combined the ability to flatter and intimidate, using music, religious, and occult motifs to persuade young people to follow him. Manson's group was made up primarily of young people, many of them vulnerable and seeking support. He called them the family and offered them a new identity, a rejection of the past, universal devotion to the leader, and a life together in isolation. They settled at Spahn Ranch, a rundown film studio cum ranch near Winchester, where Manson was able to organize vacations for his followers and keep them isolated from society. Manson developed his own twisted dystopia. He proclaimed that a race war, which he called helter-skelter, a term he borrowed from a Beatles song, would break out in America. According to his logic, this war would destroy the old society. The family would lie in wait and then rise up to seize power. He claimed that his music and lyrics contained hidden messages directed at him personally, and he used this to justify violence. At Spahn Ranch, the family lived in a state of constant dependence on Manson: drugs, sex, rituals, and physical exhaustion. He broke people's wills, forced them to renounce their names and connections, and convinced them that only he knew the truth. Many of them were willing to submit unconditionally. The core of the family was made up of young women: Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, Linda Kasabian, Leslie Van Houten, and others. For Manson, women were both assistants and symbols of his power. He exploited their loyalty and emotional vulnerability to send them on the darkest missions. Women's role in the crimes proved pivotal. They often acted at the forefront and left evidence of the community's culture of violence. The ideas of helter-skelter gradually evolved into practical orders. Manson wanted to provoke chaos by shifting blame and thereby sowing discord in society. He sent his followers on reconnaissance missions, trained them in unquestioning obedience, and prepared them to use murder as a ritual of humiliation and provocation. Over time, the family developed a list of targets, addresses, and actions that, according to Manson, were intended to sow panic. The night between August 8th and 9th, 1969, marked a turning point. On Manson's orders, a group of several family members headed to a house on Cielo Drive, an address Manson knew. Musician Terry Melcher, with whom Manson had a grudge, had previously lived there. However, none of Manson's old connections were present at the time, only Sharon Tate and her friends. Sometime late that evening, between 11:30 and 12 p.m., two cars pulled up to the gate of the house. Charles Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel were in one. Linda Kasabian and others were in the other. Linda Kasabian later testified and became a key witness at the trial. She was the designated driver and, in fact, left the crime scene without participating in the murders. First, Stephen Parent, a young visitor returning to the house after a visit, died at the gate and was shot dead in the entryway. Then the killers entered the house. Inside, tragedy unfolded. Wojtek Frykowski tried to resist, but was brutally beaten and killed. Abigail Folger and Jay Sebring also fell victim. Both were killed while attempting to defend themselves and escape. Sharon Tate, who was pregnant, begged for mercy for her child. Her pleas fell on deaf ears. She was killed on the spot. Witnesses described horrific chaos, screams, blood, and symbolic graffiti left on the walls by the killers. Bloody graffiti left at the crime scene, one of the most resonant testimonies of horror. These words, as well as the theatrical nature of the massacre, emphasized not just the murder, but the message Manson wanted to manipulate public opinion. Following the Cielo Drive massacre, the family continued their series of attacks, most notably the LaBianca murders a day later, where Leo and Rosaria LaBianca were killed. These events contributed to widespread panic and a massive police pursuit. The Los Angeles police worked quickly, collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses. Within months, law enforcement was on the trail of the family members. Linda Kasabian's testimony and evidence collected during searches proved crucial. In 1970 to 1971, Manson and several of his closest followers were arrested and brought to trial. The trial of Manson and his accomplices became a media sensation. In court, Manson displayed a defiant demeanor. He acted as a prophet, called himself Jesus, and attempted to hold the public's attention. The jury and judge encountered an unusual mixture of criminal elements and cultish elements, making the trial extremely complex from a legal perspective. Nevertheless, the evidence, testimony, and witness testimony proved sufficient. Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, Charles Tex Watson, Leslie Van Houten, and Charles Manson himself were found guilty of murder and conspiracy. They were initially given death sentences, which were later commuted to life imprisonment after California abolished the death penalty. Sharon Tate's death shocked not only Hollywood but the entire country. The incident symbolized the end of the idealistic 1960s and served as a reminder of how easily ideology can become a tool of violence when led by a charismatic but dangerous leader. Roman Polanski survived the loss, and his life and career were closely linked to his wife's memory. Tate's family and fans long sought justice and memorialization. Public debate about victims' rights and public safety received renewed impetus. Sharon Tate is remembered as a talented, warm, and vibrant personality whose life was cut short in its prime. Her role in pop culture remains not as a collection of films, but as a human story that serves as a warning.
Could you gentlemen help me?
Well, I think I could.
Could you give me a lift?
Which way are you going?
Where you going?
Oh, shut up. You're not going anywhere.
The story of Sharon Tate is both the biography of a rising star and a dark chapter in the annals of American crime. Behind the glitz of Hollywood lie complex human destinies, and sometimes it is precisely amidst success that lurks a tragedy capable of changing public consciousness. Ultimately, the Charles Manson case became not only a legal precedent, but also an example of how charisma and manipulation can turn a group of people into instruments of violence.
What did you think about Sharon Tate and her unborn baby?
What did I think about it?
And yeah.
It's not my world. I don't live in that world.
Well, so you didn't care?
Care?
Suppose
What the
technically...
hell does that mean, care?
Well, it means love. That means some
Put
sense
me in a solitary confinement, break my teeth out, break my ribs, bust me up, kick me down a hole,
Right.
and then come back and tell me about care. I don't know what care is, man.
And the name Sharon Tate remains a reminder of the uniqueness and fragility of human life. The Cielo Drive tragedy also influenced art. In 2019, director Quentin Tarantino released Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, reimagining the story of Sharon Tate and the events of the summer of 1969. Margot Robbie played the actress in the film. The film depicted an alternate version of events, where Sharon and her friends survive, while the Manson family members face retribution. Tarantino thus offered audiences a fantasy of justice that never happened, giving Sharon a symbolic continuation of her life on screen.
And be my love, if only for a day. Come live with me